New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is out. His decision to resign comes a week after the state's attorney general published a scathing investigation that found Cuomo sexually harassed at least 11 women, including a number of current and former state employees. Until this morning, the governor had apologized for making any women feel uncomfortable, but he remained defiant in the face of a pending impeachment inquiry and near unanimous calls to step down. While he said today that his instinct was to keep fighting what he called a politically motivated and unfair investigation, he said doing so would divert focus from the state's pandemic response.
It is a matter of life and death, government operations. And wasting energy on distractions is the last thing that state government should be doing. And I cannot be the cause of that. I think that given the circumstances, the best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing.
In 2 weeks, Cuomo will formally leave office. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul will succeed him, and she will be the first woman to lead the Empire State. To discuss all of this, I'm joined by Jodi Kantor of the New York Times. Her reporting on the Harvey Weinstein saga helped usher in the Me Too movement. And Karen DeWitt. She's Albany Bureau Chief for New York State Public Radio, where she's been covering Governor Cuomo closely. Thank you both for being here tonight. Karen DeWitt, to you first. I wonder if you could give us a sense, was this a surprise? I mean, I watched Cuomo's lawyer in her presentation before he made his announcement, and I thought, surely this fight is going to go on. I heard Cuomo at the initial part of his presentation, and I thought he's going to continue fighting, and then the surprise came. Were you surprised by this?
You know, actually, I was. I mean, we knew that he couldn't win this political fight. And I think it was in the moment of his speech where he said, well, you all know me as a fighter. And I thought, uh-oh, there's going to be a pivot here. And of course there was, but he essentially said, I can't win this fight. I really thought that he would wait until the eve of when the assembly was going to draw up articles of impeachment, which they seemed on that road, and to try to make some kind of face-saving deal. But the assembly speaker on Monday said there isn't going to be any deals, absolutely not. And I think that the governor really, at that point, saw that there was no exit, and this would be the best time to leave, rather than really face, months and weeks of legal wrangling and just the relentless negative news cycles.
Jodi Kantor, the argument that the governor made, he said this was biased and unfair, but he also seemed to make this argument that you hear from men of a certain generation, which is, my behavior was misinterpreted. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm a huggy, kissy, old-fashioned kind of guy, and that surely everyone misread these signals. In this era, is that argument hold any water in light of these allegations?
Well, to answer your question, I want to turn the page back a few years to the fall of 2017. After the allegations against Harvey Weinstein came out, Governor Cuomo made a series of unequivocal statements over, that fall, the following months, the following year, about protecting the women of New York from this kind of behavior. He said things like, the page has turned. This is no longer acceptable. We have to work together to do better. Now, what we now know, thanks to the report, is very significant about that timing, is that not only were we at the kind of high tide of Me Too, but that behind the scenes, the governor was allegedly targeting these women. In August of 2019, on one day, he signed legislation that women had wanted for years, really serious sexual harassment protections into law. And the next day, according to the report, he allegedly continued his targeting of the state trooper. So I think, given that he himself said that it was a new era, given that he himself appears to have contradicted the message of leadership he was sending from the highest office in the state, it's very hard to know what to make of this excuse of, things have changed, I'm an old-fashioned guy, I should have known better.
And Karen DeWitt, as Jodi is pointing out, he was, to many progressives in New York, considered a real ally on marriage equality, on abortion and reproductive rights. And so was this seeming to most New Yorkers to be a revelation that he actually turned out to be allegedly a predator behind the mansion of the governor's mansion?
Well, I still think it is a little bit generational. I've certainly talked to older people who say, yeah, I've witnessed events like this, people behaving this way. It's not great, but these things happen. It's not a crime. He said he was sorry. Let's move on. I don't think, unfortunately, people know all of the details as Jody and I do of how he seems very hypocritical when he signed a law for, with strong anti-sexual harassment measures. But the younger people, they're not putting up with it. And they're the ones that are going to, lead this country, lead New York, and, whose opinion counts. And they just find it completely unacceptable, the things that were in the Attorney General's report, what he did.
Jody Cantor, I want to read a little bit of the statement from a lawyer who represents two of the accusers. This is from Marion Wang. She writes, in part, my clients feel both vindicated and relieved that Cuomo will no longer be in a position of power over anyone. They feel solidarity with all women who continue to be abused by men in power. At least today, one of them has faced some consequences. You have reported on sexual assault and sexual harassment cases nationwide, including from many senior figures and popular figures like this. Does that statement echo the same thing that you have heard from other victims, that as awful as what they allegedly went through, having the governor resign and step down is a moment of vindication for them?
Well, what we've seen again and again with Me Too is that accountability is the engine, because women come forward when, or more likely to come forward when they believe that something of consequence will happen. Coming forward is a huge risk. It's really hard. It's still remarkable to look at this story in retrospect and see that this might have all still stayed secret had Lindsey Boylan, the first accuser, not tweeted when she did. And so I think seeing that other people care, that state lawmakers recognized what was happening, that the attorney general did this really thorough report, and that finally Cuomo had to resign means a lot. And also to your point about the discussion about this behavior and how bad it was, it's very significant that this scandal is not about sexual violence. Nobody is saying, God forbid, the governor threw me against a wall, did something that could land him in jail for many years on end, et cetera, et cetera. It's about sexual harassment, and that's about the workplace, and it's about young women in the workplace. And the fact that these were, in large part, the governor's own employees and a state trooper who was sworn to protect him, and whether they could just do their jobs unimpeded.
Karen DeWitt, the governor has said in 2 weeks he will be formally stepping down as governor, but he's not out of the woods totally, right? There's the possibility of criminal charges being brought. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, just because he's leaving doesn't mean that he can leave this all behind. The Albany County Sheriff is investigating a criminal complaint brought by Brittany Commisso, who appeared on CBS News yesterday and was executive assistant #1 in the report, saying that the governor sexually assaulted her. At least 4 other district attorneys around the state are looking at potential criminal charges. Don't forget, there's also a federal investigation ongoing about how the governor handled nursing home policy and whether he and his top aides concealed the true number of residents who died during the pandemic. And also, he's being investigated for his $5 million book deal, whether he inappropriately, improperly used staff to help him write and edit it. So there could be criminal charges. There's probably certainly going to be civil lawsuits. I believe at least one has already been brought. So this isn't going to go away for him just because he leaves office, but I don't think he's going to be the center of attention anymore, and that takes some of the heat off of him.
Jody Cantor, last question to you. We have seen so many of these major figures be snared in these allegations and have to face the consequences. And we keep saying, surely this will be the last one. Surely people will reckon with their behavior and knock it off, in essence. Do you have any sense that this is the kind of event that lets people elsewhere in the world recognize that finally we have to stop behaving like this?
Well, I don't think that, I'm not sure how many people really thought that Me Too or the Harvey Weinstein story or any of the other big stories meant the end of this behavior. In some ways, it means that we're going to find out about it more, because part of what Me Too means is that women may be more willing to come forward. And so, part of what you always have to think about at a moment like this is what don't we know, right? We can't address problems that we can't see. And so the fact that these women came forward successfully, the fact that the governor resigned may just lead to the next chapter of Me Too.
Jodi Kantor and Karen DeWitt, thank you both for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.